Hello, my name is Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about Orphan 55, the third episode of the 12th season for the 13th Doctor in Doctor Who. I was quite excited coming into this episode. I really enjoyed Spyfall, the season opener. I thought both parts, in their own ways, were really strong, introduced us to some new things, brought back some familiar old elements which really worked in their new reimagined way, and I was pretty optimistic that we had a head of steam, some momentum which could take us through the rest of the season. I'd already forgotten season 11 by this point. Season 12 was where it was at, and Orphan 55, okay, it was going to be a standalone single part episode, but that's also fundamental to New Doctor Who. And I was super excited when I heard that the guy writing Orphan 55 was the guy who wrote It Takes You Away, which was one of my favourite episodes in that season 11 that I've already forgotten. It was bonkers, don't get me wrong. Talking Frog at the end was a bit strange, but I actually liked a lot of the things that It Takes You Away does. So let's talk about Orphan 55. I'm going to give you my overall impression of the show. I'm going to talk about some of the things which worked for me and some of the things which didn't quite land. And my overall impression, it wasn't great. It wasn't even really good. I have to say that on balance, I think Orphan 55 was a pretty bad episode of Doctor Who. And what was the most frustrating thing about it is I think within it there were enough familiar elements to make a good, if not exceptional, episode of Who. But it was thrown away, and not on the things that some people have been arguing about. I don't really care about the message of this episode. I'm trying not to spoil things just yet. That wasn't a great fan of it, but I have no objections to it. It's a message that has its merits, and as I'll talk about when I talk about spoilers in a second, there were some things in there that actually, on reflection, were really quite interesting. But there was so much of this episode which just didn't come together. Characters appearing and disappearing for no real reason. Character motivations being arbitrary and sudden left. Right turns that didn't make any sense for that character, for what we knew to them to that point. Now, I'm all for big surprise reveals, but none of them were handled very well. To get into exactly what I'm talking about, I'm going to need to talk spoilers. So, if you want my takeaway for this episode it is eminently skippable. If you are busy and just want to watch the good episodes of Doctor Who, go rewatch Spyfall. Ignore this one. There are a couple of things in it that I really liked, and I will talk about them. But generally speaking, this is series 11 all over, guys. So let's talk spoilers. Let's talk about the things which didn't really work for me and the things which did work. Let's start with the things which did work for me. And really, I actually love the Doctor's portrayal in this episode. Jodie Whittaker hasn't put a foot wrong yet for me this season. I liked her throughout Spyfall, and in the context of this episode, her portrayal of the Doctor this time round was great. And actually, let's talk about that big speech at the end. I've already seen a lot of people being a bit kind of, oh God, it was really in your face. It was really, Doctor Who being woke, and I don't really know what that means. I'm 50 years old. This AI. But my first thought about it was that it was really strange that the people that she laid this speech on was her companions. They weren't really guilty of anything in this episode. And, you know, if they were going to take this message by heart, what they should do right now is stop travelling with the doctor and go work in environmental concerns to actually, you know, prevent this future that they've seen. But I don't think it was actually the doctor talking to her companions. I think it's the doctor unloading about what the Master did on Gallifrey. I think this whole thing of, you know, you can make your choices, you can choose to save the world or destroy it, is actually still the Doctor processing what she's seen the Master has done to Gallifrey in Spyfall. And actually that's kind of clever. The other things that I liked in this episode were just tiny moments, really. And both of them were sort of comedy moments, really. I really enjoyed Ryan fending off hallucinatory bats. I know, it's just a bit of silly business in the background, but I love the fact that they did some silly business in the background while the Doctor was carrying on with the scene. I love the crayons and half a can of Spam line when she's talking to Kane. I thought that was very funny. And I love some of the energy this episode has. I think if you were to cut out some of the extraneous characters and give the characters we left with more room to breathe and to feel relatable, I think you'd get a pretty, I mean, not great, but, you know, an averagely solid episode of Doctor Who doing a base under siege thing. But they reached for more than they were able to achieve. They put too much onto the screen for us to deal with, and it meant that every element was just underplayed. So what didn't land for me this episode? Well, given how short a list of things which I liked for this episode, I'm afraid an awful lot of it I really didn't like. I don't want to dwell on any of it, so let's do a speed round. Alien makeup. The dregs look great, but Hyphen with a 3 and the green head people were just kind of lazy and weird looking, and I don't understand what they were trying to achieve with that. The motivations of every character in this show were just unexplored. I didn't understand why anyone was doing anything in this episode, including the Dreg, but also Bella and Kane and Hyphen 3, not that she really did anything, but, you know, none of this really made sense. We had some strange turns, we had some strange revelations, but none of it hit, none of it landed, because we didn't care about any of these characters. We didn't spend enough time with any of these characters, or indeed the setting, for us to develop any attachment to them. The proposal from Benny to Vilma, I think her name was the one thing that we got, and we didn't see enough of them after that or before that to really let that settle in. So when Benny does vanish, well, I don't care. And then the whole thing with Benny didn't make any sense. Why did they kill all of the other guests at the hotel? I mean, why were they killing the guests at the hotel at all? Why were the Dreg attacking the hotel? I have no idea. What was their motivation? What were they there for? But why then keep Benny alive? Why keep Benny alive and entertain themselves? Was it Kane's line? Enough that Benny wanted to be killed? Why didn't we see that? Why didn't we... Why were there so many people in the armoured car which went out on a mission and then decided to turn around and then broke down and then had to scarper through the tunnels? Why? Why were some of those not left behind? Didn't we establish that the base was secure, or at least as secure as it could be? Surely it would have made more sense to leave the engineers behind to work on the defences, while just a few people went out in the van. Now, I can understand why Vilma would want to go, but why was -3 there? Why was... why? Why, when we had to go through the tunnels and the oxygen was running out quicker for the Doctor as anyone else, which is weird because we know the Doctor and the management of Time Lords and oxygen is different, but the Dreg nest they went through, apart from the fact they had fires in them, which kind of requires oxygen, the nest only had one person in it, and that person happened to be the leader of the Dreg. The reveal of this being an underground station in Russia. I mean, we've done that before in Classic Who. We did that in... it was one of the Sixth Doctor ones. I forget the episode. It was it part of the Trial of the Time Lord season? I think it was. We've seen that. We've seen a reveal of, oh no, this tunnel's actually an underground station, a London underground station in the Classic era. Now, I mean, it's a good moment, it's a good point, and the reveal that it's Earth was not a huge surprise, if I'm honest. But okay, fine. You want to have an environmental message? Okay, I'll give you that. But the fact that then later in the episode, the Doctor describes this as a potential future that can be avoided, when has Doctor Who ever presented the future in that way? That's not how it works. That's not how the future works in Doctor Who. The future is a place in Doctor Who. And you go there, and it is just like the past. I guess there are fixed points in the future, maybe, and there are fixed places that can, and things that can change. And if they're going to change the future of this Earth to avoid this, then somebody who knows about this future needs to be working on it. And does that mean the companions are going off and leaving to become environmental activists before next episode? Because that's the only way that the future can be changed. That Yaz and Graham and Ryan, who've seen that future, can work... sorry, by that I mean, I don't mean, Earth is doomed, environmental catastrophe is coming, there's nothing that the human race can do about it. What I mean is, having established that that is a future, the future that is seen, that is the path that we are on. To change that path, something has to change. And the only people who are aware of that path to change it are the three companions. Cool. Look, at the end of the day, I think this episode could have been reworked to make a bog standard, run-of-the-mill, base under siege type episode, possibly even holding on to the environmental message at the end. But it needed at least another major pass through the scripting stage to try and establish motivations, to try and make things make sense. And without that, Orphan 55, it's just a mess. Let's hope the next episode is more in line with Spyfall. Thanks for watching. I really wanted to like this episode. If you want to see more about Doctor Who and me, go and have a look at the Spyfall review in my Storycast Rob is a Whovian playlist. If you want to see more about me as a writer, go check my writing things and subscribe with a button or a thing. What did you think of Orphan 55? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next week. Cheers.